Okay guys, I'm going to start today by just doing the unit circle again. You should at this point know how to do this on your own, but I'm just going to fill it out for you really quickly. I'm going to start with degrees, 0 degrees, 30, 45, 60, 90, 120, 135, 150, 180, 210, 225, 240, 270, 300, 315, 330, and all the way around the circle would be 360 degrees. The next thing we can do is we can fill in your radians. 0 radians, this would be pi over 6 radians. This is pi over 4. This is pi over 3. And this is pi halves. Remember, all the way around, or halfway around the circle is pi. All the way around would be 2 pi. So half here would be half pi. The next thing we can do is we can do our 45s. That's 1 pi over 4 at 45 degrees, 2 pi over 4. And then right here we'd have 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, 6 pi over 4, and 6 pi over 4 is the same as 3 pi over 2. And then this would be 7 pi over 4. And if we just count by pi over 6, we can actually do the rest of these. So this would be 1 pi over 6, 2 pi over 6, 3 pi over 6, 4 pi over 6. And let's write it over here. 4 pi over 6, which just simplifies to 2 pi over 3. So 1 pi over 6, 2 pi over 6, 3 pi over 6, 4 pi over 6. Right here, that would give us 5 pi over 6, 6 pi over 6, 7 pi over 6, 8 pi over 6, and 8 pi over 6 is really 4 pi over 3. So it's 8 pi over 6, 9 pi over 6, 10 pi over 6, and 10 pi over 6 is really just 5 pi over 3. And then that right here would give us 11 pi over 6, and then 12 pi over 6, which is 2 pi. Okay, next I want to do our coordinates, our points. So remember that this point, you know, if this is the origin, we go right one, that'd be 1, 0. This is 0, 1, negative 1, 0, and here we go left and right 0, and we go down 1. Now, I know that this is probably the part you're struggling with. Now, you only have 3 options of things to put here. You have the square root of 2 over 2, you have the square root of 3 over 2, and you have 1/2. Now, if you can remember at the 45, it's the same, okay, because it creates that isosceles triangle. So in the middle, you're always going to have square root of 2 over 2, 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 square root of 2 over 2. Okay, so that means that we are done with the square root of 2 over 2. Now we have these two, and you have to decide one goes here, and then the opposite is here. So which one goes where? One way I like to think about it is I think about the square root of 3 over 2. If you put that in your calculator and got a decimal approximation, it would be approximately 0.87. Okay, so this is approximately 0.87. And we know 1/2 is 0.5. So square root of 3 over 2 is greater than 1/2. And if you look as a point, are you going right more? Or are you going up more? So you can see that you go further to the right, which means your x-coordinate is larger. So the square root of 3 over 2 would have to go here, which only leaves 1/2 here. Remember, the ones that are closest to the x-axis, all of those points are the same. So this is square root of 3 over 2, 1/2, square root of 3 over 2, 1/2, square root of 3 over 2, 1/2. Okay? And finally, with this point, the same is true. You go over 1/2 and up square root of 3 over 2, because you can see you go over less and up more. So this point is 1/2 square root of 3 over 2, 1/2 square root of 3 over 2, 1/2 square root of 3 over 2, 1/2, square root of 3 over 2. All we have left to do is add our signs, okay? Remember that in the first quadrant, positive, positive, second quadrant, negative, positive, third quadrant is negative, negative, and fourth quadrant is positive, negative. So first one here, negative, both of them here are negative, and only the second one here is negative. Okay, so we need to know the unit circle because we need to use it to help us find exact values. Okay, these points are x, y, right? And they're in the form cosine, sine. So cosine's first, sine is second. That's how I remember it, is sine goes second. So if I asked you, for example, what is the sine of 30 degrees? Okay, so what we would do is we'd go to 30 degrees and we'd be like, which one's sine? Okay, sine goes second, so the cosine of 30 degrees is 1/2. Okay, I could ask you another question like, what is the tangent of pi force? So we would go to pi force, and we would need to find tangent, but we only know that this is cosine and this is sine. So what we do know is, or I guess I haven't told you guys this yet, tangent of theta is equal to sine of theta over the cosine of theta. This is something very important that you will need to remember, and that's that the tangent of theta is equal to the sine of theta over the cosine of theta. So if we're looking for the tangent here, we're going to take the sine, which is the square root of 2 over 2, and we divide that by the cosine, which is the square root of 2 over 2. Now, we know that anything divided by itself is just 1, right? But if you also wanted to think of it as the square root of 2 over 2, remember when you divide by a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal, which would give us 2 over the square root of 2. That gives us 2 square roots of 2 over 2 square roots of 2, which again is just 1. So either way, you get the same answer. Okay, let's look at number 3. Let's do the sine of 60 degrees. So we go to 60 degrees, sine goes second, so our answer is the square root of 3 over 2. So I guess maybe you can write this down. These are some things you would need to know, that the sine of theta is equal to y, or cosine of theta is equal to x, tangent of theta is equal to sine of theta over cosine of theta, which just means it's equal to y over x. Okay? And we'll also be doing reciprocal functions. So remember that the cosecant of theta is 1 over sine. So you could just say the cosecant is 1 over y. And the secant of theta is 1 over cosine. And cosine is x, so it's 1 over x. And the cotangent of theta is equal to the reciprocal of tangent, so 1 over tan of theta, which tangent of theta is y over x, so cotangent is x over y. Okay, so if you wanted me to even further simplify that, we could just say cosine of theta equals x, sine of theta equals y, tangent of theta is equal to y over x, cosecant of theta is equal to 1 over y, secant of theta is equal to 1 over x, and the cotangent of theta, I guess I can write that here, is equal to x over y. So this is really important and is going to help us as we are working through these problems. So let's look at number 4. So number 4 is cotangent of pi halves. Okay, so we'll need to look at our unit circle and go to pi halves, which is up here, pi halves. And remember, cotangent is x over y. So here, that would be 0 over 1, which is 0. Okay, number 5. secant of 120 degrees. So we'd use our unit circle and go to 120 degrees, which is here. And then secant is 1 over x, okay? 1 over x. So at 120 degrees, x is negative 1/2. But we're doing 1 over negative 1/2, which means we're saying 1 times the reciprocal of negative 1/2, which is negative 2 over 1. So our answer is negative 2. Number 6 is cosecant of 135 degrees, okay? So we'll go to 135 degrees, and we'll see that the cosecant is 1 over y. So that's 1 over, at 135 degrees, y is the square root of 2 over 2. So it's 1 over the square root of 2 over 2, which is just equal to 1 times 2 over the square root of 2. So, which is equal to 2 square root of 2. But we can't have a radical in the denominator, so we have to multiply the numerator and denominator by the square root of 2. And that gives us 2 square roots of 2 over 2, which is just the square root of 2. So that would be our answer. Number 7 is the sine of 5 pi over 6. Okay, so we use our unit circle to find 5 pi over 6. I know that 5 pi over 6 is really close to 6 pi over 6, which is pi. So we're just going to go a little bit before that. Remember, sine goes second. Sine is equal to y. So here, sine of 5 pi over 6 is just 1/2. Okay, number 8 is tangent of pi. We know pi is here. And tangent is sine over cosine, or y over x. So that would be 0 divided by negative 1, which is just 0. Number 9 is cotangent of 7 pi over 6. Okay, so we would go to 7 pi over 6, which is here. And the cotangent, remember cotangent is x over y. So in this case, at 7 pi over 6, x is negative square roots of 3 over 2. We're dividing by that by negative 1/2. Remember, they're both negative, so they become positive. And when you divide by a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal. The 2's cancel and just give us the square root of 3. Okay, number 10 is the secant of 225 degrees. Okay, so we go over here, we go to 225, which is here, and secant, remember secant is 1 over x. So at 225, x is negative square root of 2 over 2. So that's 1 divided by negative square root of 2 over 2. And when we divide by a fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of negative square root of 2 over 2 is negative 2 over the square root of 2. That gives us negative 2 over the square root of 2. And we can't have a radical in the denominator. So we have to multiply the numerator and denominator by the square root of 2. And that gives us negative 2 square roots of 2 over 2. Our 2's cancel, and we just get this negative square root of 2. Okay, so let me see if I have any other problems I want to do with you. Let's do this one. Let's look at number 11. So number 11 is cosecant of 240 degrees. Okay, so we would look at our unit circle and go to 240 degrees, which is here. Remember that cosecant is 1 over sine, and sine is y, so it's 1 over y. And at 240 degrees, y is the negative square root of 3 over 2. So that's 1 divided by negative square root of 3 over 2, which is 1 times the reciprocal of negative square root of 3 over 2, which is negative 2 over the square root of 3. That gives us negative 2 square root of 3. And then we have to rationalize the denominator, so we have to multiply the numerator and denominator by the square root of 3. And that gives us negative 2 square root of 3 over 3. That would be your answer there. Okay, I want to do one more with you. This is actually number 16 from your notes. And on number 16, it's the cosecant of 330 degrees, okay? So we go look at 330 degrees, and the cosecant is, again, 1 over y. Number 16, I wrote that wrong, my bad. Number 16 is CSC, or cosecant of 360 degrees, which is here, okay? Cosecant is 1 over y, but at 360 degrees, y is 0. And whenever we have a 0 in the denominator, it is undefined. So you can just write UD. So what I really want you guys to know today is I need y'all to focus on knowing this, okay? Because tomorrow we are going to start doing all this, and we're not going to have the unit circle in front of us. I'm going to give you guys some other shortcut methods on how you can get all the information from the unit circle without having to have the full unit circle. So today I want you guys to focus on this. Your homework is going to be number 11. I think we did 11 together, but I'll just say number 11 through 23 from the exact value notes day 1. I know that this is some new stuff and it might be some tough stuff, but we are spending literally all week on this. I'm going to upload 4 videos pretty much doing almost the exact same thing that we did today. So just know that. You do have a quiz on exact values this Friday. Let me know if you guys have any questions, please.